Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon if you're Chris's time zone. Tonight, then, I've got Chris from W.A.S.P Paranormal in America. Welcome, Chris. Nice to have you on the show, mate.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
No, not at all, not at all. Thanks for coming on. So, lots of questions. I love having American paranormal teams come on. When you spoke to me at that moment in time, you said your team have been on, or the episode that was coming up
That's correct.
was Ghost Adventures, you and your team. What was the episode about? I mean, I don't watch Ghost Adventures, but probably a lot of my members do, or the public do. So I'm intrigued.
Okay. So the episode is called Ghost Island. It aired October 18th of 2023, and it took place out on a place called Fildingar Ranch, which is right in the middle of Antelope Island, which is right in the middle of the Great Salt Lake here in Utah. It's a place that my team has investigated for the last 5 years. And what happened was they decided to reach out to the ranch manager and myself about what's been going on out there. And for the last 5 years, that location, I will be honest with you, it is what I'd like to call a holy grail when it comes to the world of the paranormal, because you hear about all these great places like Dracula's Castle or Poveglia Island. And when you step onto Fildingar Ranch, the history, the aura behind it's mesmerizing. There's a lot of things to it that caught our attention. And of course, the first thing that came up was the story about Jean Baptiste, the gravedigger that was in Salt Lake City. And that's one of the first questions I asked, and it was immediately debunked as not being real because, yes, he did spend some time out on Antelope Island, but was transported to Fremont Island. I don't know if there's enough history of him being on the island for him to be there. I think more of the history has to be involved the namesake, which is Fildingar, and the people that were there from 1848 to now, I feel is what the energy is. The woods, however, I think is something a little different because I know back in 2020, we went and visited there. But beforehand, my team of Western Association for the Science of the Paranormal was out in a town called Taylorsville, Utah, with a case that was brought to us about a family that was dealing with some type of dark entity that was attacking people and causing the homeowner to be really nervous, scared. She also had a little mixture of business that was causing her all these issues. I remember a couple of times we were out there, we had something attached to us. And 2 weeks later is when it actually decided to possess me, which my team was able to get rid of. And we don't know what exactly happened to the spirit itself. I think it's in the woods because ever since that moment with that incident that involved me, we've been having a lot of the dark activity in those woods.
So you think it's like an attachment then? It attached itself to you, and then it's obviously, that's really weird.
Mm-hmm.
How would it detach itself and use the woods as its new home without any form of exorcism or any priest or anything like that come in and, remove it like we do?
That's actually a very good question to ask. And part of my team, we have anywhere from 3 to 4 cleansers. They will use different things such as sage and other items to help cleanse you, to make you feel better. And the team I have, 3 of them, which was Thomas, Amitaph, and Stephanie. Stephanie is our psychic medium. They were able to detach this entity away from me by using sage, by using whatever gifts they have to get rid of it away from me. And I could definitely feel a difference once the entity was taken away from me, because as soon as it was gone, I was completely drained. I had no energy left. I couldn't move. It was it was rather disturbing, I'll be honest with you, because I've never experienced anything like that. But I do know that after I had that incident happen, I always wear some type of protection, a necklace, different stones that come with me. That ever since that incident happened, I've not had any attachments since.
So with the attachment, I've had the same issue. I did a house cleansing for a lady in North, is it North? No, South Wales, here in the UK. Demonic presence, multiple personalities, real nasty job it was. And towards the end, it started to come towards me and float around my legs. So I know how you feel. It's a real heavy feeling. All the happiness has been drained out of you. There is no happiness whatsoever. It is just dark. Oh, it's horrible. It's a horrible feeling. But for you, did that change how you investigate in ways? I mean, obviously you said use protection now.
That's the biggest way, is just making sure I'm wearing my protection anytime I go on an investigation, because I don't want the same thing to happen to me. I was actually fortunate because this thing came home with me and didn't do any damage until I went out onto the island and was investigating again, which I found remarkable. So my family wasn't affected by it. Any of my animals were not affected by it. My neighbors weren't affected by it. So that is the one thing I did differently, was make sure that I'm always wearing some type of protection. My team will not instigate these spirits. We come in with 100% respect, because these great people that we work with, they know that you do not disrespect spirits. You don't go in there and antagonize them to get results, because the paranormal works on its own. It does what it wants when it wants. It works on its own time. Just antagonizing it is not going to be good for your soul. It's not going to be good for you at all. So pretty much the biggest thing that's changed is we make sure any type of protection is on us at all time. We're always respectful about the questions that we ask these spirits, because we don't want them to come home with us. But more importantly, we don't want to cause the area that we are investigating or performing our field studies to get worse. And that's one of the things that a lot of people that watch TV, they think that's how you're going to get all this activity. That's how you're going to actually get evidence. And that's not the case. A lot of times the evidence that you capture is on accident.
Literally is by accident. I find it interesting that you said that you took it home with you and that it didn't attach itself to anybody or any of the animals. It's that when you said it basically, when it went to the island, it left you then. I know this sounds crazy, but does it not sound like it was actually looking for a new home?
It did. And the crazy thing about it is the entity itself came from a closet. And where you're hearing this right. It came from a closet. The world of the paranormal, it's the strangest thing. It could come from anywhere. But the reason why that Taylorsville case came up was the lady was having issues inside the closet where something was attacking her. And it all happened when either her spouse wasn't there or after he just left to go to work. And it's the most interesting thing. That night of our second investigation on this location, because we did two. We did one without the spouse being there, and then we did a second one with him being there. We noticed that whatever it was, that spirit was not friendly at all, because it was more active when he was there. And he decided to do his own little experiment and pretty much instigate this spirit that we were noticing there was a little bit of activity. And the moment I stepped in to have him come out, I think is when it attached to me, because that's when it all just changed. And I'm not sure exactly why it was in there. There's not even some evidence that we believe. Well, let me rephrase that. The the person that lived in the home thought the basement or the neighbors downstairs in the basement were making things happen, like conjuring spirits or doing some
All right.
type of witchcraft.
All right.
And unfortunately, we don't have proof of that. That's the worst part of it. Um, and all I remember from that point, after the incident happened on Antelope Island, we actually went back and cleansed the family in a park far away from the home. And then we cleansed the home with my team there. And something was in there because it was trying to antagonize my team, which my team's like, nope, you're not gonna win this war. You're gonna lose, plain and simple.
So is this the only dark entity you've ever come across in the 14 years that you've been doing this now? Or have you actually witnessed more?
Believe it or not, when it comes to dark entities, we don't see a whole lot of them. We see more of the residual energy that is still there from when the entity or when the energy was around. The only other incident I can think of is when we first got into studying the paranormal, we checked out a place called Bushnell Hospital, which was formerly known as the Intermountain Indian School. The little history about this place is back during World War II, they opened up this big hospital up in Brigham City, Utah, bedded over 15,000 patients, had first introduction to insulin, but more importantly, it also had POWs from Japan, Germany, and Italy. First time we checked this place out, you can definitely feel that there's a dark presence to the place. And we even caught one of our greatest pieces of evidence from this location using a $50 night vision camera that we bought from Target. And all it was a full body apparition of a World War II soldier, which is absolutely incredible. I can send that to you and you can check it out, because if you put it on like a cell phone or anything, it is hard to look at. But when you're on an actual computer where you can use a program like QuickTime or Windows Media Player, you can actually see the full body apparition in the door. And there's many of us that think it's a residual. We think it's an intelligent. And the reason why it's a mixture of one or the other is because when it was leaving the room, it was walking backwards, like it saw us and was trying to get out of the room. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. But it comes up to the other dark entity. So we went back to this location a few nights later, and a couple of my team members went into this one room, and you walk into the room, it has there's a pentagram on the ground with a dead cat in the middle of it. And as my team member walks in, he all of a sudden starts hearing voices saying, "Kill them, kill them." He ended up leaving the room and ended up regurgitating on the ground because it was so dark that it messed him up. And at that moment, we get radioed, "We got to go." And it was the perfect choice to do, because anytime someone's dealing with something like that, I think that's the closest to demonic we've ever experienced. Because with this hospital, it ended up becoming an Intermountain Indian School, which was originally for Navajos, I believe, at the beginning. And then they brought in all these different tribes to the school. It eventually shut down around, I believe, 1981. And then since then, the buildings have been deserted. Teenagers will go in there and do devil worshiping acts, which is stupidest thing you can ever do in a place like that. And since then, they've torn down a lot of the buildings that were there, but a lot of the buildings ended up being remodeled for either businesses or apartments. And one of the buildings that I've recently been into is now a furniture/antique shop. And what's very troublesome is they actually still have one of the cots from when it was Bushnell Hospital. It has the stains. It's disgusting. I'm going to be honest. See that item and them selling it is really disturbing. My first thought is you better cleanse the heck out of that thing, because you don't know what you're getting yourself into when you purchase something.
People don't know, do they? That's the problem. They buy these items and they think nothing of it. What they don't realise, like normal people, we'll call them, for example, right now, They'll look at it and go, I'll add that to my collection. What they don't realise, like you said, is it's the attachments that come with it. I mean, I've got a debut box in here. It's about that size. It's got a rabbit on the front of it with a load of blood thrown over it.
Oh,
and I did an investigation in here with it. And it turns out it's only a 7-year-old boy.
Wow.
He's lost. He's completely lost. I was lucky, I'm not going to lie. I was very lucky.
I would
we
say
all know
so.
it could have been a lot worse.
But
yeah, he's sat in the other room now. It's brilliant.
Yeah, what people don't realize, and a lot of them who go and purchase stuff like this from like thrift stores or estate sales or yard sales, because a lot of them probably don't even believe to begin with, is you're purchasing something that will have an attachment to it. And I have an example that is amazing. So back when my team had a radio show called W.A.S.P Radio, back between 2020 and 2021 during the pandemic, we did an investigation at a location here in Clearfield, Utah called Dark Prime Collectibles. And they sell many different things, sports memorabilia, old fashioned action figures, toys. And we're in the corner doing just some readings to see if we can pick up any spikes. And we end up finding this blue Beanie Baby that the energy on it was high. It was spiking over like 9 milligauss, 10 milligauss. We could not figure out where this was coming from. We moved it away from the wall, brought it into the center of the room. It still had this energy. And the person that was with us, Warren Breaker, he's the person that runs KGRA. He ended up buying this Beanie Baby and bringing it back to the studio. And they said that there's activity going on in the studio even before they brought this Beanie Baby home. My first thought is, I wonder if they've got more activity since then. It's insane. So.
But yeah, like you said, people just don't understand what you can buy nowadays and the attachments. It's the older stuff that worries me as well, like war memorabilia. Like I've got a World War II child's gas mask full setup, and I get a lot of activity off that. Children running around in the flat. You know, I'm used to it. I'm an empath as well as an investigator, but I experience pain and I see shadows. So for me, it's the norm now. So I've got like 6 children, an old lady, and a dog. You know, we all cohabit.
Well, for us, we've got 2 bunnies that run around here. We got 2 little rabbits that run around here that are spirits that passed away. One did pass away in the room I'm currently in right now. The other one passed away in our living room that's just on the other side of this door. And they're bouncing around. And I know this because my cats are watching them like crazy, wanting to play with them. So I exactly know what you mean. And
it's brilliant.
Yeah.
If you get the right spirit and they want, like you said, they come out. What people forget doing investigations nowadays is these were people, you know, they're not monkeys, they're not a circus act. And yet, when I did events, it was the biggest thing that kept bugging me was everyone would say to me on an event, we're going to see a ghost tonight with our eyes. No. It doesn't work like that.
Exactly.
I have spent thousands of hours waiting for that one picture, that one bit of evidence, you know, just that I'm here or hello. People don't get it.
Yeah.
But they expect them to come out and perform. It's ridiculous.
You're absolutely right. And I've learned since 2009, since I've been doing this, is that it's not that easy. It's rare that you actually pick up any type of evidence. I'll be honest. Our group since we've been around for 15 years, we picked up 3 pieces of video that I feel stand out and may actually have the answers to what we're doing. And to this day, I still can't explain it. The science behind it is absolutely mesmerizing. I've already mentioned about how we caught the full body apparition of a World War II soldier. Last year, we were checking out a place in Ogden known as it's called Legacy Tattoo. It's off of 25th Street. And for anybody who's familiar with the history of Utah, 25th Street is the epicenter of the Wild West from the 1800s and early 1900s. It was so bad that late great mob boss Al Capone once said that he would never step foot in Ogden because it's too dangerous. Whether that quote's real or not, I can't answer that, but that's what we've heard. But this place used to be a brothel. It used to have, there was little kids running around because mom would go to work at the brothel. And my buddy is using the FLIR, thermal imaging camera. He's got the attachment for his iPhone. So he's using his iPhone when he's doing this. And we're upstairs on, you can call it the second floor or the third floor, depending on how you look at the layout of the building. And you can see this little box, this little box that comes out of nowhere, just run by, go right to the center door and move into the other room. And when he saw it, of course, his first thought was WTF, because he said it out loud. But when we checked this out, we're like, you cannot be serious. We did not just catch that. Even my biggest skeptic, Rick, who is our president of our team, could not believe what he saw. It was absolutely mesmerizing. And even the year before that, we checked out the Kiva Club, which we mentioned Ghost Adventures earlier. They were out there a couple of years prior. And they picked up a stick figure with their SLS camera and everything, but they were focused more on the bowling alley. We went out there back in 2022 with KSL, one of our local news crews, and filmed an investigation out there, which, by the way, won a Rocky Mountain Emmy Award for a daylight short or something is what they were calling it. So that was really cool. But I remember going in there. We set a camera down on a brick wall facing our team because we're in the back taking a little break. And my buddy shuts the camera off, or at least we thought, because he shut the screen door on it. And he's got it point right at a particular angle where my buddy's truck is right there. And on the other side, where the driver's side side mirror is at, you can see a spirit walking by the mirror. Because, and this is something that we spent hours trying to debunk as being one of us. But how it was doing it, because if you notice, whenever you walk to a mirror, it gets bigger and bigger and closer. You go more into an angle, so to speak. How we caught this is you could see the spirit just walking straight like this. It doesn't change shape, doesn't change size. Looks like it's wearing a cowboy hat, which none of us were wearing. And we spent hours looking into this, and we could not recreate the action that happened. It was absolutely incredible. It's all luck. Let's be honest.
If it was, yeah, I think it's an accident. It's one of those moments where you turn your back, and when you turn your back, it just goes like that, and you're like that. But the best bit about it is when you go home and you go through all the evidence, and then you see it, and you're like that. Nah, that wasn't there. I didn't see that. And then you show everyone, and they're like, "Where was that? You know, where did that come from?" I had it with 30 East Drive. I did an event there. I used the mirror in the room, in the mail room, to take pictures. I have a thing of don't directly shoot your shots at what you're looking at. Use some form of glass or a mirror type to bounce it off to try and catch the shadow, because it's more likely to catch you there rather than look at a lens. So I've done this all the time. I've had 21 captures now since I've been doing this, and I got one at 30 East Drive. And everyone says it looks like the Black Monk. It's a white hooded figure. But what everyone missed out on this figure was it wasn't the main obvious figure that you should be looking at. On the figure's shoulder is a little boy. The little boy was stood over my shoulder, and the figure was further back. So I shot two of them using a mirror. You know, people like that. We looked it up at 1 o'clock and started playing with things. because they were doing a blind spirit box upstairs. And when I saw it, I burst into tears. I won't lie. It was one of those moments where you thought, wow. I got to silence a lot of critics about the location. There was a massive hoo-ha about, it's overcamped, there's nothing there, there's this, there's that. It ended up going to the papers. It's now about to be put on TV in Germany. She's done an interview for it with Bill Bungie, who actually owns the house, who did the film to the house called When the Lights Go Out. It's when you get that bit of evidence, and it is an accident, it is one of those feelings that I can't describe it. I was ecstatic. But you get people coming in and they do these investigations expecting so much. I mean, like you just said, 14 years you've been at it and you've had 3 clear bits. I'm not going to lie, I've had no video footage. I did have audio footage, but I've lost it. So I only have pictures, which is why I have so many. I take around 1,000 pictures on a location. So I'm guaranteed to hopefully pick something up. I'd love to have footage. I'm really envious you've got footage. Just to have something move or, it's there. I always said to my friends, if I'm not taking a picture, I don't believe it's true. Or unless I'm the only one in the picture, I ain't going to believe it. I am skeptic. I'm 50-50, big time. You have to be nowadays. There's too many people in our field who think everything's real. Now, there is a lot of people who go, I'm 100% believer. If that's the case, every bit of evidence we produce is paranormal.
Yeah, I agree 100% because...
But there's just too many of them.
Oh, yeah. You got to be skeptical on any investigation you go into. I say whenever I talk to a client, I'll believe what they're telling me. But whenever I go into the location, I'm always still going to be skeptical of what we capture because not everything's paranormal. And that's the first thing I tell anybody that is wanting to get into the paranormal. Not everything's paranormal. You got to have common sense to understand what is paranormal and what isn't. But 9 times out of 10, if it seems paranormal, you could still debunk it as something as simple, say, a door opening on its own is the best example I can give because you got to look at the door frame, got to look at the hinges, look at the handle. There's only so many things a door can do that if it's opening on its own, check, especially with the weather these days, a door frame can, the frame can shift. It can do different things that it's going to be easier to open. It's not always going to be paranormal. If you're feeling a cold draft and you're in the room, check the windows for insulation. Check to see how old those windows are because the place, like I mentioned, Legacy Tattoo, a lot of the windows were still there from back when it was in the 1900s. They haven't been insulated or anything, so you can feel the cold breeze coming in and hitting you. That's not paranormal. That's perfectly normal life. It's that stuff where you cannot explain or you try to duplicate it and it does not work out that you'd be like, okay, there might be something there. But I totally agree also that it is on accident. And it's fascinating that you use the mirrors to help you out because one of the things that we're curious about is if mirrors are portals.
I have a picture. I'll send it to you in a bit. So you can have a proper look at it. I got a friend of mine who took 2 pictures within, I think it was 20-second time frame we did it at an RAF hospital here in the UK. And funny enough, it's actually American designed and built. Okay. And we took this shot of this picture, right, of this mirror, and the first picture was just him in it. So we're like, okay. The second picture he brought up and showed me, in it was trees, the sun, and a load of black lines. And we're like, that's physically impossible. It's like we hit a gateway. Actually, Who's that? Because I think that's one of my team members that's just come up. That's just commented, actually. Yeah, Daniel. Daniel was there with us. This one, but it was a cracking picture. Mickey had literally taken a picture of a portal that opened at that exact second. And we all looked at it and we were like that. Because, like you, when you said that then, I totally agree with you. Anything with a shine on it or a reflection has to be a portal. How do they get to move around so much? And I believe, and I have to say this because I had an incident with this. Dan will tell you, we were at my house 2 years ago, and I was in another bungalow. And my ex-partner's mum was apparently supposed to be into the white magic. Unfortunately, she brought something else through. I've got a picture of that as well somewhere. We investigated it because it was getting quite vicious. It started on me, picked me up in a matter of days. I was hospitalised, 3 weeks gone completely. When I came back and did the investigation, we had to get rid of the kids. Everyone was gone. Just me, her, and Mickey. And Mickey took a picture in her mother's bedroom in a big mirror. And it was a headless figure. Black figure, no head.
That's
and we were like, what's going on here? What's going on here? In the front room, there was fingerprints on the TV. Her parents are very, very OCD, so no, it's not there. But what got me most of all is the entity, because I can't say it's satanic. It was just a real dark entity, basically. It was using the mirrors to travel from house to house. And that's how it was picking us all off. Nasty thing, though. Nasty. Never seen nothing like it. It took me out in a matter of days. Like I said, 3 days. As soon as we knew it was in there, I went from the nice person to I was depressed, I was low, I became suicidal, I had all the dark thoughts. I wasn't happy anymore, I felt everything had sucked out. And then all of a sudden I went into surgical wards because it got too much for me and something happened within my stomach. 3 weeks later I'd come back because it was like being in hospital, was like being on holiday for me. I literally came back and felt it there again, but with Mickey there this time. Mickey's an exorcist. He's a priest, and he went round, changed everything, got rid of this spirit. And once it had gone, you wouldn't believe how everything changes. I mean, us as investigators, we know, but people who've never experienced it, it's like, I don't even know how I can explain it to someone that's never experienced it. It's like everything just disappears. You become light. But I totally agree with you. Mirrors, 100%. Jeez. I use mirrors because I see it as I'm not directly looking at them.
Yeah.
And if I'm not directly looking at them, I'm not invading their privacy. Like I said, they're not monkeys. So to take a shot at them directly is, I think, it's an invasion of privacy. But to use a mirror or a piece of glass, it's just being crafty. But you would not believe some of the shots that I've had using glass or mirrors. It is. I've had a lot of people ask me, how do I get these images like I do, and I've explained it to them. It's like I use robots now in big rooms, motion censored robots. Now on doors, like you said earlier, you can tell when there's a wind or the frames warped. If it's paranormal, this robot, we all know, has got to be proper hit, because I do demonstrations so everyone can see it. But if it's there and it goes off, it's been tricked by a presence, because we can't do it unless we physically do something. I did Workley Top Forge with Dan. We did Workley Top Forge together. I booby trapped a 20 square foot area with 8 robots 4 K2s, 2 REM pods, one silent REM pod and something else I had on my police car. And the evidence we got, I was stood in the middle, the evidence we got of around this area was absolutely phenomenal. I was with another team there, a team they had an event on, and I was showing their customers how we pick up stuff, how to get stuff in a room without faking it, how to show them that this stuff can happen and that it's real. And this other team were even going, where'd you get it? Where'd you get it? So now robots has even come into paranormal investigations here in the UK because everyone's started to see them being used because you can't physically in you can't make them go off. You can't, you know, interfere with them. And the evidence you get from them is absolutely phenomenal. We did London, Edinburgh Vaults, and we were able to guide a spirit in one of the rooms to pick off. We had 3 robots and about 20 bits of gear in the middle of the floor in different areas. We could point to a bit of gear or show a bit of gear, and these robots would go up to this bit of gear, but it would go round all the other bits and hit this one piece. It was Scotland. Scotland Events have got video footage, and I believe Spig have got footage as well as Paranormal History have got footage of these robots that I had. And it was amazing. I've never seen a robot on command go for a piece of equipment via spirit. But it changed how I investigate. I am so unorthodox now, and I'm so unique with it all because all I see is the same people nowadays going in, taking pictures, showing it. Oh look, I've got an orb.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's unfortunately in the UK at the moment, our field is in a bit of disarray.
Unfortunately, that is true.
There's just too much fake stuff out there at the moment.
Mm-hmm. And that's the one thing with our team, when I look at it, is when you take the time to actually investigate a location, you should be doing it 100% right. Don't go in there trying to fake anything. All you're doing is hurting your credibility, and everything we do is 100% legit. We will not play games. We don't mess around. The goal is to get answers to why our clients are dealing with what they are. If they are being attacked, let's find out why they're being attacked or what is attacking them, if it's anything. And the example, that Taylorsville case I mentioned earlier, we were able to debunk the fact that one of the things she was telling us that would happen is she would fall asleep in her bedroom, wake up the next morning on the couch. One of the things she mentioned, and this is easy to debunk actually, one of the things she's mentioned is she was stressed at work because she ran a company. A lot of things were very stressful. Money was not working out or something. I don't remember the gist, but I do remember that she was stressed, extremely stressed. One of the things that happens when people are stressed is they sleepwalk because their body is so overwhelmed with what's going on and everything that they can't motion. And at one point, you feel like you're sleeping, but then you're still moving. To me, she's sleepwalking from her bedroom into the living room and falling and waking up on the couch. That's the biggest explanation I can even come up with, that it's easy to see. And the thing that people don't realize when we're studying the paranormal is this isn't a thing where it's not a vacation. This is actually still technically a job. This is still, it is still work that you put into. You're setting up equipment. You're making sure everything has the correct batteries, that the batteries are full 100%. You're guiding your team into what could possibly happen, what to expect. You're asking a lot of questions. You're staying up way late, getting into these locations and checking them out. And of course, you're also putting the work behind the scenes by getting permission to step on the property, to get into the location without breaking any laws, no trespassing. You're talking with the client, getting more information of what has happened. You're asking a lot of different questions. And one of the things also too that I've noticed from not all our clients, but some people that I've interviewed and talked to, uh, I asked this question, and it's one I'm very uncomfortable with because you don't want to ask it, but it will help with the investigation. Are you taking any drugs? Are you using
I
anything
knew
to
that
take?
was coming. I knew that was
Yeah,
coming. It's when you said straight away, I felt
exactly.
uncomfortable, and I thought it's got to be drugs, either that or alcohol. And I thought,
Hmm.
Peter, jeez, I know
And
exactly how you feel. It's
oh yeah.
very invasive, isn't it?
Hmm. It affects your mind. It affects your vision. It affects everything. I mean, I still remember the joke of hearing about when people would drink and see pink elephants flying around. You remember that as a kid, and you're like,
Big bunnies, big
oh, yeah,
bunnies.
exactly. And it's just those things you have to ask. And you have to remind them, oh, we're not turning this into the police or anything. This is to help us get answers to why you're experiencing what you're doing. All the cases I've dealt with, the Taylorsville one definitely sits in my mind as one of the scariest because of all the events that happened. And what's funny is we can definitely tell that there's a different presence on Antelope Island because of that incident. Because one of the things we used to do was ghost tours out there and invite people to come check it out. And on September 29th, 2021, we were out there and we decided to split it into two different groups, one between 8 p.m. and 10 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, and then from 10 to 1 a.m. And the group that was there from until 10 p.m., a couple people got attacked in the woods. They had markings on their shoulders. And that's never happened, not even with us, until when we had filmed with KSL out there for the first time, where one of our team members had a scratch on his arm. But what ended up happening next was unreal. All of a sudden, in the barn, we're starting to smell smoke out of nowhere. And we don't see any fires. There's nothing to show that there's a fire going on. But the ranch managers are out there. They're also smelling this and really concerned. They bring out the fire department to check this out. They could not find any source of a fire. But here's the interesting thing. Back in the 1800s, some type of fire happened that one of the ranch hands got burned on his face and had markings on his face and everything, which coincide with smelling the smoke. Even a couple of my team members who are empaths as well sensed this presence that was out there. And the other story that's very interesting is there was back in, I would believe it was in the 40s, there was a gentleman who was an alcoholic that was big looking for something to drink. This place is a place that would not have an ounce of alcohol on it because of the religion that was behind it. And so he goes down into the cellar and picks up bottles of lemon extract and starts drinking them like they're alcohol. He ends up getting really ill. They start putting him in the vehicle, start trying to get him to the hospital. And halfway to the hospital, he passes away. They found him by this tree right across from the cellar. And a tour that we had in 2020, we never mentioned anything about this incident happening to anybody that came out for that tour. But later that night, one of the women started acting like they were drunk, like they'd been drinking. And this is a paranormal team I was familiar with because one of the members eventually, well, two of them, excuse me, eventually became members of W.A.S.P. And I asked them, was she drinking at all? No, she had no ounce of alcohol on her whatsoever. Even before we picked her up, she wasn't drinking. And they found her over by the tree where the gentleman was sick from drinking all the lemon extract. And I'm like, that is really interesting to have an incident like that. So she must have interacted with that spirit or something because that is insane
It
to
sounds
even
like
tell
possession,
anybody.
doesn't it? It
Hmm.
sounds like full body possession, that does.
Hmm. Very insane. I could not believe what I heard. And that's just the tip of the, that's not even the tip of the iceberg of what we experienced out there. And the reason why Zach and his crew came out to Antelope Island is we did this news story back in 2021. Yeah, 2021, where we went out there. And at near the end of the story, Chris Black, one of my buddies who was a part of W.A.S.P, said he felt like a burning on his arm. Pulls up his jacket, his hoodie, all the things he's wearing, and there's a big old scratch mark on his arm. This is what caught Ghost Adventures' attention and reached out to the ranch and us. And what they experienced out there, I'm not going to lie to anybody. I can vouch as being legit because we experienced the same things. It was insane to see that they experienced the same things, and there could have been more that happened. I can honestly say, since we've been out there, so we went out there one more time last year after they've investigated before the episode aired, and there was some strange incidents that happened, but it seemed a lot calmer than it normally was.
Do you think the spirit's attached?
It wouldn't surprise me. I'll be honest with you.
That's a shame, that is.
Mm-hmm. No,
you never know, will you, until you go back again.
Yeah. And it's one of those things. We'll go back out there this year. We've been visiting that place at least once or twice a year since we started investigating it back in 2018. And it's been amazing. We've heard a disembodied chuckle, which to this day still brings the hair on my arms go straight up when I hear that. So what happened was, this was back around Labor Day in 2019 when we were out there, and we did a full overnight investigation. We were there until 6 o'clock in the morning. And this is around the witching hour when we were doing a tarot reading to find more information of the history behind this location. And what she pulled up was rather disturbing. But to give you a little history of Fildingar, he was a polygamist like most of the LDS members. And his daughter eventually became like a second or third or fourth wife to Brother Stringham, who ended up taking over the ranch. And they had multiple kids, like polygamous families do. And one of the children was being harassed by one of the ranch hands. And that's just saying the PG term of harassed, if you get my drift.
Mm-hmm.
So after she gets done with this tarot reading, there's a different feel in the air, but we also start hearing movement in the room. We're looking around. I'm trying to find a mouse. There's no mouse. You hear the floor creaking. I'm like, that's floor. That's not me. And then all of a sudden you get this very faint chuckle. And oh yeah. And I heard it. And my eyes wide, and I'm like, whoa. You could not believe what we heard. And I was lucky enough that we barely caught it on digital recorder. It was very faint, and even trying to enhance it so you can actually hear it, still not enough. It is hard to listen. It's hard, and I can't believe we caught it still, but it was amazing that we even caught that. So many different things happened on that island, and there's even one thing that was brought to our attention actually before that investigation with KSL, that to this day, I'm still like, there's got to be a connection. That's a good question.
Right. So this is my medium. This is my medium I was watching.
Mm-hmm.
Dan's in training. And he's asked this question out of blue. He reads people.
Mm-hmm.
So he has put, has Chris got a friend or relative who served in World War II and Afghanistan?
So World War II would be my grandpa Glenn. And I know my grandpa Art was a part of the military when World War II was going on. So I believe he was also a part of it. As for Afghanistan, I had a friend named Luke Dreyer. He's still around. And he was out in Afghanistan. He didn't fight in the war. He was one of the people that was working on doing the mechanic stuff. So he was out there.
There you go, Dan. Practicing. It's so fun. It's pretty funny how it comes on and out of the blue he'll say something like that.
But it's interesting she brings up World War II because we were just talking about Bushnell Hospital up in Brigham City, where that was around during World War II, which eventually turned into a school for Native Americans, which there was nothing bad I could say that happened during that time, but Yeah, it's interesting that you brought those questions. Good questions, though, to ask.
Good old Dan, can't beat him down. But now I've got a question now because obviously I ask the Americans a lot of questions when it comes to where they are. Obviously, we
Hmm.
know you've got a lot of states. England's, well, minute compared to America.
Hmm.
What is Utah like for paranormal activity? Is it very, very active?
Yes, I would consider it one of the top 10 states that is very active because, for one, you got the Native American history. You had the Utes and the Navajos who battled each other on consistent basis, which brings up the whole entire thing about Skinwalker Ranch,
Uh,
which we may actually have a connection with that with Fielding-Gar Ranch. And I was about ready to bring this up, which is interesting. We're out there one day, and one of the ranch managers comes up, and apparently they had some tree trimmers come out and was trimming up the forest area. And one of the guys that was there was very puzzled and profound. He's like, I've only seen the way these trees are shaped and formed in one other place. And he said it was Skinwalker Ranch. When we heard this, we're like, is there a connection with Skinwalker Ranch and Fielding-Gar Ranch? So we're still looking into it. I'm not sure if you believe the ley line theory. I'm not sure if
yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah, totally. Yes, I do.
I think there's a ley line that comes right near Fielding-Gar Ranch that goes to Skinwalker Ranch. So I'm thinking there's that thing, but because of Ogden, Utah, how dark it is because of the history it's had. I mean, you had prohibition out there, you had drinking or people brothels, people dying. There was even stories about where 25th Street, right up the middle, split between the north and the south side. And if anybody from the south side stepped on the north side, they'd get killed, which I believe there was a child that was killed and his presence still showing up. There's a place in southern Utah known as the Melton Meadow Massacre, which involved a Mormon militia killing over 100 people, which was all men, women, and children. There were a lot of deaths on this property in southern Utah, and the activity out there is outstanding. It's insane. So I would say Utah is definitely a top 10 when it comes to activity.
I got somebody's, I can't find who the user is, but they're excited about Utah for the win.
Utah, I'm not going to lie to anybody. I've lived here all my life. And although the winters are really harsh, the summer can be really harsh as well. I wouldn't give up anything from living here. This is a wonderful place. One of my favorite things is my door right across from me is the Wasatch Mountains. And you look at these mountains and they're extraordinarily beautiful. You enjoy it, whether it's during the summer where there's no snow to fall, winter, and spring that there's snow on it all the time. It's absolutely gorgeous. It actually makes me feel protected because of that. So I would say Utah is a great place to come check out. You've got a lot of historical areas. I highly encourage if you ever come out to Utah, check out Fielding-Gar Ranch right in the middle of Antelope Island. You will not be disappointed. The history is amazing.
So here's a question for you personally. If you were able to investigate anywhere, where would it be and why?
Skinwalker Ranch is right there on the top of my list. I'm not going to lie. There's a place in Louisville, Kentucky, Waverly Hills Sanatorium. I've heard a
Oh, well,
lot
I'd
of
like to do that.
that. One would be a great one. Anything over the ocean and into England, I don't know if there's many castles that still stand out there in the United Kingdom. I would love to
There's
check out.
tons.
I would love to check out some of those.
I've
Uh,
been to, I think, 12 now, and I can't tell you. I really can't.
I think the energy out there would be mesmerizing. That
It is.
there's a chance you're going to pick up something. I think one place in particular, when it comes to out in Europe, would be Poveglia Island. It's got my attention, And the only reason why is the stories about how there was the plague out there, that people would bring people that were affected by the plague and have them die out there. I'm curious to how the souls were, because, for instance, Brigham's that the Bushnell Hospital again, there were a ton of EVPs of "help me, somebody help me," screaming, stuff along those lines, because this is a hospital that bedded over 15,000 patients. This is during World War II. It's not going to be a pretty sight. The history behind it, there's got to be something that makes it where it screams like that. Imagine going to a place like Poveglia Island with the experiences they had clear back in that time. It only makes you wonder what you're going to capture, if anything.
See, I'd like to do Suicide Forest,
That
Japan.
one, that one I've heard a lot too, and that's another one that's on my bucket list.
You're not allowed to film there through respect, which isn't an issue. For me, it's not about that. It is, I think personally, the closest to being alive, by being alive, the closest you can get to death.
I like that answer. That's a very good point.
Because, as we all know, Suicide Forest has its name for the amount of suicides of people out there, but they leave the bodies there. They're not moved. So the energy in there is going to be absolutely phenomenal.
It's going to be
And
high.
and I just think that is the closest you'll ever come to while being alive to death. I really do. It has fascinated me so much since I was. I watch a lot of films and things over there that way, looking at that forest, and it's the whole idea of leaving the body there. That's what I don't get. It's not covered up. It's there rotted. Oh yeah, that's definitely mine. That is
Yeah.
definitely mine.
To add to that, yeah, it's disrespectful to leave it there. Uh, in a way, to me, because here in America, anybody that passes away, you're either cremated or you're buried. And for me, because that's the custom I'm into, that's to me sort of disrespectful. You're just leaving it there. What's the spirit doing that is hanging there? What is it seeing? Yeah, I that's another one that's curious to me. The whole entire
It's
folklore and everything. It's amazing.
it's apparently they leave their bodies there. It's something to do with disgracing the family name.
Hmm.
It's a massive thing, isn't it? Pride over there.
Which
If
I
you disgrace, it's. I reckon if I've got this right, this might be my mate Bobby from Redneck Paranormal, Ashton Hall. Do you know what? I've never even done that one yet.
those are some pretty good places. The stories I've heard about those locations, I know Penhurst is one I hear about all the time because a friend of mine who lives out east, he talks about going there all the time and says the the activity is insane. The activity is crazy. And Ashton Hall, I'm gonna have to check that one out. I've not heard that one before. I'm gonna
See,
have to
it's
check
an,
that one out.
that's over my way. That is. That's what I was saying. I've heard of it, but I've never done it.
Mhm. Well, I'll tell you what, if you're ever interested in coming out to Utah and checking out some of our locations, especially Gar Ranch, hop a plane, come aboard. We welcome you.
Oh
We're
man, that
always
sounds ace.
we're always good about working with other teams because how I look at the paranormal, you can't just study it by yourself. You need
No. It's
multiple.
to share.
Yeah, you need to share it and help each other out because you're only going to get answers by working with each other, not against each other.
It's funny because I was talking to a lady earlier about doing investigations. Now I don't start speaking to her today. She's actually watching, and she said it'd be interesting to see how you investigate because we all have our own ways,
Hmm.
and combining strategies as it is and sciences, we all there's a higher chance of catching more evidence as such. But we all know it doesn't happen like that. So whoever
Agreed.
this is that's commenting said he's done Penhurst 5 times and only made it out 3. Is it really that bad?
There's a lot of history by Penhurst that it can be. It can be pretty bad out there. I personally have never been out there before because I've never traveled out that far east yet. That time will come. But the stories I've heard, it's a pretty dark location. If I would compare it to anything that I've done in Utah, I think Bushnell Hospital Intermountain Indian School would be right near it, if not worse than it.
There's got to be Bobby this. Is this Penhurst a prison?
I believe it is. I believe it was at one point and they shut it down. It was a asylum. It was a mental hospital.
Well, that's even better.
Yep. It is.
Hospital inside. It's Bobby.
Oh yeah. Just alone, what Penhurst is absolutely insane. In fact, I just went ahead and sent you a link to what it looks like through Facebook Messenger. And it looks extremely creepy. So you definitely are going to have the feel of it. But yeah, it was a mental hospital. And the activity out there, you're going to be dealing with a lot of mental patients, people that dealt with disabilities that nobody could understand. It's not for the faint of heart. I'll tell you that much.
Damn, that's some pictures here, like. My God, that is mental. I like that. And put that some real. We don't get that over here where we are. Not at all. We don't get nothing like that. That's why we're so jealous. We want to come over to the States, all the British investigators, and yet you guys want to come over here. You don't really want to come over here, trust me.
Well, I'll tell you what, you're jealous about what we have. I'm jealous of the fact you guys get all these great castles that you get to explore there. And the history behind those has to be amazing. I would love to explore a place like that to see what they capture and just go from there. I would be absolutely amazed to see what we can capture.
Trying to think. Castle, there's tons of them.
I know, right?
And then you've got the jails to go with them.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to think. We've got a lot of RAF, abandoned RAF camps as well, which, believe it or not, were built by the Americans first, and then the British adapted them, and then obviously we handed them back to you. But I had 3 contracts to military camps, and I've witnessed some fair shares of stuff that I should never have witnessed. You know, like you were talking earlier, smell of smoke. We had one at Binbrook. Believe it or not, it was just a normal medical centre. So it had like a dentist in it, a normal doctor's, an upstairs ward for male and female officers. We've gone into one of the rooms and there's a very strong smell of sulphur.
Mm-hmm.
When we looked into the history, it turned out that a female officer had actually hung herself in this room. But the smell, oh my God, so foul. And then the male ward, quite funny, we're all in the dark. I had about 30 customers with me. And there's this young lad, and he sat behind his mum, literally here. And I remember seeing it, you could see the light come through the window. I watched her head get yanked on and her head go like that. As she's gone like that, she's turned around to say, "What are you doing pulling on my head?" It wasn't him. Clear as day. Oh my God, it was phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. And
just a little kid.
You mentioned smells. If you do come out to Utah and you're anywhere near the Great Salt Lake, you're going to get a very strong stench from the Great Salt Lake. It is horrific because it's not called the Great Salt Lake because it's supposed to smell pretty. It's a salt lake. Not to mention it's holding down a bunch of arsenic that holds underneath too. So not the greatest.
It's going to be stinky.
Oh yeah.
But
It
yeah,
definitely has its moment.
I've been lucky to see what I've seen and hear what I've heard and catch what I've caught. But there was I just feel there's more to it. So like when I spoke to Resnick, I spoke to Dr. Lee, Landon, and I spoke to a few other teams about it. If we are investigating the dead, I wonder if the dead are actually investigating us.
I wouldn't be surprised. It would not surprise me.
But how would that work? That would be my biggest question. How would a dead paranormal team investigate us? They know what we're like. We're just numpties walking around eating and drinking.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm curious to it. It's like another one of my questions is, where's the dinosaurs?
That's an interesting one. Yeah, the whole entire thing with the dinosaurs. Why haven't we ran into that? It's interesting, though, you bring that up because the one thing I have experienced when studying the paranormal is a ghost train.
I've heard a carriage, horse and carriage. I've never done the ghost train.
Yeah. There's a place out here near me called Steed's Pond. It's a man-made pond, and the reason why we checked into this is the folklore was there was a young boy one midsummer afternoon who drowned in the pond. And his spirit would show up at the school nearby, wave, and disappear. So it's one of those things. Okay, let's go check this out. Let's see what we can find. It turns out that story of the boy is true yet false because there wasn't just one boy that passed away. It was 3 boys that passed away. And 2 of them were in the 40s. When it happened, they were playing in a canoe or a raft, and it tipside. One of the boys was able to escape, but the other 2 drowned in the pond. And then right next to the pond, there's a walkway that used to run the Denver Rio Grande Railroad system. It ran for years, but then they stopped running it, and the tracks became what Utah did is they turned them into walkways for people to walk and do their jogging and everything. We're walking this one night, running our digital recorder, and imagine this. You go home, plug in your digital recorder, get the evidence off, you're running through listening to it, and all of a sudden, you go from this voice to this voice. You're all of a sudden talking like this. You're running it very low, very high, and then it goes back up. And during that process, you're listening to it carefully, and you start hearing train bells, which no longer exist, for one. And you're hearing something like running through you. And I do know for a fact that like a half a mile east from us, there is a set of train tracks that still runs like Union Pacific, as well as our rail system. We did confirm nothing was running at that time when all this happened. So we're like, what in the world is going on here? We never caught anything like that. And we were just amazed with the activity just from a ghost train in this part of the area we were in.
You get all the good stuff. You think I'm kidding?
The funny part is you said it's an accident. You're 100% correct. It just happens. It just happens. You have to be there at the right time, the right place for it to happen. And many people think that it's just about gathering evidence. No, there's more to it than just gathering evidence. It's about trying to get answers to what's going on. Why are people thinking, is it paranormal? Reality is 9 times out of 10, it isn't.
We have a lot of it. It's conflict regarding this. Is a lot of teams go out to prove. My theory is you're going out to debunk. Now, a lot of American teams I've spoken to will actually say, no, we go out and debunk it. Not the British. arrogant as we are, they go out to prove.
Mm-hmm.
What are you going out to prove? That's what I don't understand. And the other thing we have is obviously you get like your folklores, myths. So when they go out investigating, they'll go looking for one spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Like we've heard there's this black lady in these woods. We're going to go find her. They've missed everything else.
Mm-hmm.
It's people forget. I mean, you've got a lot of it over your way. Your grounds are absolutely phenomenal. You have a lot of history in your grounds, not your buildings, but your actual grounds with like the
Mm-hmm.
Indians and all that. We don't have so much of that here, but people just assume it's all about this building's haunted.
Mm-hmm.
No, but it starts from the ground and works its way up.
Mm-hmm.
But people think, no, this building's haunted. Well, how did it get there for a start?
Mm-hmm.
What is it? Like when you said, when you go out and do these things, it's not about just doing it. There's months of research. We know this because we've all done it. Proper investigators will tell you you're looking between 6 to 12 weeks before you'll hit a location because you need history. You need
Mm-hmm.
to know exactly what's gone on there, deaths, people, religion, cults, all this, the grounds. We know all this. And then like when you said, you know, it's you get your evidence. People don't realise how much evidence you have to go through.
Mm-hmm.
There is hours of it. You could turn a 4-hour video into 8 weeks of work. And people like that, it's a job. It is a job, but it's one I enjoy. I'm so fascinated with this.
Mm-hmm.
I believe this is the start of our journey in life. Obviously, once you pass on, you then start your own life. And I say that because the pictures I've taken is just too much not to say there is a second life.
Yeah. I think there's enough evidence to prove there is an afterlife. What is
Oh,
it? What is it exactly? We're still learning. And right there, average 100 hours of video per investigation, because you got to realize you're not just using one camera to investigate. You're using multiple. You're
eight,
using
nine,
different. Yeah, you're
easy
using.
8, 9.
Oh, without question. It's people don't realize all the work that you put in. You're going to watch these TV shows and think, oh, they spend an hour there and they're doing everything. It is further from the truth. I'll give you an example. Ghost Adventures was out there for 3 days, 3 days doing everything they needed to. And they spent an entire night there with multiple cameras. And they were there April 4th through the 6th of last year. Episode didn't air until October 18th. They spent more than 6 months looking through everything to see what they can gather. And people forget that that's what it takes to run a TV show. That's what it takes to put up on YouTube is you're not just sitting there looking at one camera, one digital recorder. If you're a real paranormal team, you probably got multiple digital recorders, got multiple cameras. You got to check every nook and cranny. You got to check everything because you never know what you're going to catch. But most importantly, you got to have more than one person looking at this. You got to have multiple people looking at this because you may see something, but they're going to be like, oh, I can explain this. And that's where it comes down to it. Not everything's paranormal. You can't always expect it. That wouldn't surprise me. And see, stuff like that does not surprise me at all. I guarantee you, though, if you're smelling a medium dog or a cat, it's probably one of the bunnies that we had, one of the rabbits that we had. Because we had 2 rabbits, both of them passed away in this house. And the one that's here in the one that's here in my game cave that I like to call it her name was Sparkles. And she didn't last very long. She was a very young bunny. She only lasted maybe a year max. but I can always tell that she's here, and the cats will come in and play with this bunny all the time. They'll run around with it. They'll try to catch it. Especially Mac, one of my male cat, loves to chase down Sparkles. So you're not necessarily wrong.
Imagine button cat, that would be eggs.
Hmm. I do believe there are animal spirits. I
Of course,
feel
it's got to be, isn't it?
yeah, they can't be just human spirits. There's got to be animal spirits all over the place because of the experiences they went through. You never know this day and age unless you actually investigate. You understand it, you know?
Yeah. I'm trying to think now what I said.
Well, this was a great conversation. Thank you for having me on here today. I'm glad we were able to talk about this and discuss
No,
the
not at
paranormal.
all. I'd like to try and get you back on actually, because hopefully I want to get you on possibly just after you've done the island.
Okay.
Simple reason is I've got to hear about the fact that it would be interesting to see, like you said, it went last time you heard about it, it was quiet. It'd be interesting to see if the spirit actually hid itself or whether it has actually left. Personally, point of view, I think possibly it's hid itself for a reason.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Because there is a lot of cameras and they're on TV. So I'm just wondering.
If it attached to anybody, it would have attached. It wouldn't have attached to Zach because he wasn't out there the longest. I wouldn't say it would be Billy or Aaron. It would be the other one. I can't even remember his name. Oh my heavens! I hit 41 and my brain is starting. Jay Wasley. I think it would have attached to him because he was out there in the woods by himself, which our team already knows. You never go out there by yourself ever. You're always with a team. So many things have happened in that woods that you go out there by yourself. Yeah, you're asking to get hurt. You're asking for the spirit to attach to you. Don't ever do it by yourself. So, and that's another thing I tell everybody when you're investigating, be a part of the team. Don't do it by yourself. Don't ever do it by yourself.
Minimum 2 people.
You always want some type of protection with you when you have another person, because if you're going into one of these buildings and let's say you fall through the floor and no one's there with you, probably going to die.
Long night.
Yeah, it's going to be a long night. You probably hurt real bad. You always go by you don't ever go by yourself. You always go with somebody. Point case blank. Fielding-Gar Ranch, you never do it by yourself. You always have people there with you 100%.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
I hope to get you on, like I said, later in the year. It's been a pleasure talking to you. And I'll tell you what, I've learned a lot, to be honest, about Utah, that's for sure.
Definitely check it out. And thank you for the time. I really appreciate it, man. We got to do this again sometime.
Thank you.
Thank you.